Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to our journey into the fascinating world of blood. Today we are diving deep into the life sustaining river that flows within each of us. So, have you ever wondered what keeps you alive and kicking every single day? So, look no further than the amazing world of blood. So, in this video, we were diving deep into the crimson currents flowing through our veins, exploring the dynamic components that make up life sustaining fluid. So, blood is a body fluid in humans and the other animals that delivers the necessary substances such as nutrients and the oxygen to the cells and also transports the metabolic waste products away from these same cells. And blood is specialized connective tissue, fluid connective tissue that contains a cell suspended in a fluid. So let me know about the physical characteristics of the blood. The first one is color change. The oxygen rich blood is scarlet red and the oxygen poor blood is dull red. So pH must be remain between the 7.35 to 7.45. This is slightly alkaline or basic in nature. And blood temperature is slightly higher than the body temperature. So 5 to 6 liters of the blood are necessary to our body. Then we go to the important functions of the blood. It helps in the transportation, which transport the materials from one place to the another, and which provide a watery environment for the individual cells. And blood helps to maintain the constant internal temperature, and it combat or the control disease and infections, and helps in the regulate the body's pH level. Now we know about the components of the blood. The main components of the blood such as red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets and the plasma. The plasma is a fluid component and which makes up 55% in the blood, and other 45% is all cells, that is red blood cells, white blood cells and the platelets. The plasma. Plasma is a fluid component that contains the 90% of the water. So like a river carrying sediment, and plasma contains and the transports proteins, red blood cells and white blood cells and the platelets, and which transports the essential nutrients, enzymes, hormones, gases and the organic salts. The blood is formed by some elements such as erythrocytes, that is the red blood cells, leukocytes, that is white blood cells and the platelets. These are the cell fragments. So first up, let's meet the red blood cells or the erythrocytes. These tiny disc-shaped cells are packed with the hemoglobin, a protein that carries oxygen from the lungs to every cell in the body. So the erythrocytes, the main function is to carry the oxygen. The anatomy of circulating the erythrocytes. These are biconcave discs, essentially bags of the hemoglobin, and a nucleate. That nucleus is absent in red blood cells and which contain a very few organelles. Hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is an iron containing protein that binds strongly but reversibly to the oxygen, and each hemoglobin molecule has 4 oxygen binding sites, 4 oxygen binding sites, and each erythrocyte or RBC has 250 million hemoglobin molecules. The RBC makes up the 43% of the blood, which helps in the transport of the oxygen and little carbon dioxide on its hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is a protein and which consists of red pigment and which contains the iron. So when oxygen is attached to the hemoglobin, it appears red. Why? Because each RBC contains 280 million hemoglobin molecules. So once oxygen is released, the hemoglobin changes and reflects blue light. The red blood cells of the RBC, which produced in the bone marrow, the rate of 2.3 millions per second, and which contain a nucleus when produced, but it is lost in the circulation. So the used RBC are destroyed by the liver and the spleen. So the bone marrow is the birthplace of the RBC and which is destroyed in liver and spleen. Some facts about the RBC. For a 1 liter of blood can carry 3 ml of oxygen without hemoglobin, can survive 4.5 seconds. Then 200 ml of the oxygen with hemoglobin which can survive the 5 minutes. So anemia is the lack of red blood cells or the hemoglobin, so which causes the loss of blood or lack of dietary iron. So red blood cells, the quantity is influenced by the sex, health, age and the attitude. So at high altitudes there is less oxygen, so more RBC are created. In men, 5.5 million RBC per ml of the blood, and for in human, 4.5 million RBC per ml of the blood. So without enough red blood cells, our tissues wouldn't get the oxygen they need to the function properly. So that's why conditions like anemia can leave you so feeling so tired and the weak. So the fate of erythrocytes, these are unable to divide and grow or synthesize proteins and wear out in 100 to 120 days when worn out or eliminated by the phagocytes in the spleen or liver. Lost cells are replaced by the division of the stem cells. So next we have the white blood cells or the leukocytes. These are the soldiers of the immune system and constantly patrolling our bodies and attacking invaders like the bacteria and the viruses. So white blood cells make up about 1% of the blood, and these protect against illnesses and the invaders which form the immune system, and pus is created from dead white blood cells that have engulfed an invader. So the white blood cells are larger than RBC and which contains the nucleus, but in RBC the nucleus is absent. Some facts means there are 700 RBC for every white blood cell. Leukocytes are the white blood cells. These are crucial in the body's defense against the diseases, and these are complete cells with a nucleus and some organelles and able to move into and out of the blood vessels, that is diapedesis, and can respond to the chemicals which released by the damaged tissues. Leukocyte levels in the blood, so the normal levels comes 4000 to 7000 cells per ml, and the abnormal leukocytes levels cause the leukocytosis and the leukopenia. Abnormal leukocyte means it may be increasing or the decreasing. So increasing leukocyte causes a leukocytosis. So above 11,000 leukocytes per ml causes a leukocytosis, generally indicates an infection. So below 11,000 causes the leukopenia. So abnormally low leukocyte levels, so commonly caused by certain types of leukocytes or the types of WBC, granulocytes and the agranulocytes. Granulocytes or the granules in their cytoplasm can be stained granules, and include the neutrophils, eosinophils and the basophils. The neutrophils are a multilobed nucleus with fine granules and act as phagocytes at active sites of the infection. And eosinophils is a large brick red cytoplasmic granules which found in response to allergies and the parasitic worms. Then the basophils. These are have histamine containing granules and initiate the inflammations. In agranulocytes, there are two forms, lymphocytes and the monocytes. In lymphocytes, nucleus fills most of the cell and play an important role in the immune response. In monocytes, these are the largest of the white blood cells. The function as macrophages and important in fighting chronic infections. And let's not forget about the platelets, the smallest but might players in blood clotting. So when we get an injury or a cut, so platelets rush to the scene and form a clot to stop the bleeding. So these are derived from the ruptured multinucleate cells or megakaryocytes and needed for the clotting process. Clotting process ಗೆ platelets help ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So normal platelet count comes 3 lakh per mm cube. Platelets make up about 1% of blood, which is helping the necessary for the coagulation, that is clotting process. If broken blood vessel is found, a set of chemical reactions is started. So fibrin is a sticky network of the protein fibers which forms over the injury. Some facts about the platelets. Hemophilia. Hemophilia is a genetic blood disorder where clots cannot be formed, which can cause death because of the blood loss. Then thrombosis. Thrombosis is a clot that forms and closes of the blood vessel. So clot in brain can cause an apoplectic stroke or a heart attack. So heart attack causes from the thrombosis. And clot that moves is an embolism and it is very dangerous to our body. Hemostasis. Hemostasis is one of the process of the disease which stoppage of the blood flow which results of the break in the blood vessel. So hemostasis involves in the three phases, that is platelet plug formation and the vascular spasms and coagulation. So platelets are helpful in the blood clotting. So blood will usually clots within the 3 to 6 minutes. So the blood clots remains as the endothelium regenerates. The clot is broken down after the tissue repair. So this is a picture of blood vessel. Blood is more than just cells. It's also made up of liquid component called a plasma. So which contains the water, electrolytes, hormones and the proteins like antibodies, and which helps in the fight infections, and which containing RBC and the WBC and the platelets. These are the components of the blood. So as you can see, blood is truly extraordinary. It's not just a red fluid that flows through our veins. It's a lifeline. So keeping us healthy and alive every single day. So keeps the blood healthy is very. This is about the four components of blood. The plasma, which is 55% in blood, and the platelets and the white blood cells or 1% of the blood. Then RBC or 43% of the blood. So it is the table of all about the blood. So the characteristics and the function, origin, approximate number and the relative size and about the lifespan. So RBC, that is red blood cells, which functions as transports of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. Their origin in or the birthplace in the bone marrow. Approximate number in male 5 million and in female 4.5 million. These are relative size small 8 micrometer, and the lifespan of RBC is 120 days. And the WBC, that is the leukocytes and the lymphocytes, these functions ingests and the destroys the foreign particles, and the lymphocytes helps in the forms of the antibodies. These birthplace is bone marrow and the spleen and lymph nodes. The leukocytes approximate number 6,000, and the lymphocytes, this approximate number per ml is 2000. Leukocytes are largest, that is 25 micrometer, and lymphocytes also large, that is 10 micrometer. And lifespan of WBC is leukocytes few hours to a few days, and lymphocytes is unknown. Then the last one is platelets. These functions is coagulation or the blood of clotting of the blood. So the birthplace is bone marrow, and the approximate number 2,50,000, and these are very smallest in nature, that is 2 micrometer. This lifespan is about 7 to 8 days. So this is a little concept map of the blood. So blood is made up of plasma and the cells. The plasma is 55%, and the plasma which is the composed of the water, that is 90%, and the gases, cells, nutrients and some mixtures, that is 10%. And the cells or red blood cells, white blood cells and the platelets. Red blood cells, that is 43%, white blood cells 1%, platelets 1%, and red blood cells which helps in the carry of oxygen and the carbon dioxide, and also known as the erythrocytes. And the cells including white blood cells, these function as fight invaders for the immune system, and types are leukocytes and the lymphocytes, and white blood cells also called as leukocytes. And then platelets, these functions as a blood clotting. This is all about the cell. So please like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you all.